500 Days of Summer, is a 2009 American romantic comedy drama film written by Scott Neustadter and Michael H. Weber, directed by Marc Webb, produced by Mark Waters, and starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Zooey Deschanel. The film employs a nonlinear narrative structure, with the story based upon its male protagonist and his memories of a failed relationship. As an independent production, the film was picked up for distribution by Fox Searchlight Pictures and premiered at the 2009 Sundance Film Festival. It garnered critical acclaim and became a successful sleeper hit, earning over $60 million in worldwide returns, far exceeding its $7.5 million budget. Many critics lauded the film as one of the best from 2009 and drew comparisons to other acclaimed films such as Annie Hall and High Fidelity. The film received the 2009 Satellite Award for Best Original Screenplay and the Independent Spirit Award for Best Screenplay, as well as nominations at the 67th Golden Globe Awards for Best Picture and Best Actor. Plot: the film is presented in a nonlinear narrative, as it jumps from various days within the 500-day span of Tom and Summer's relationship, indicated by an animation that includes the day's number. This summary is a linear version of the events of the film. On January 8, Tom Hansen meets Summer Finn, the new assistant to his boss. Tom trained as an architect but works as a writer at a greeting card company in Los Angeles. Following a karaoke night, Tom's friend and co-worker Mackenzie reveals that Tom is attracted to Summer. During the next few months, Summer and Tom grow closer, despite Summer's telling Tom that she does not believe in true love, and does not want a boyfriend. Tom shows Summer his favorite spot in the city, which overlooks a number of buildings he likes, although the view is spoiled by parking lots. After several months of dating, Tom gets into a fight with a man who flirts with Summer, and they have their first argument. On day 290, Summer and Tom end their relationship after they see The Graduate, a film which Tom thinks shows true love. Tom does not take the breakup well, and Tom's friends call his younger sister, Rachel, to calm him down. Summer quits her job at the greeting card company. Tom's boss moves him to the consolations department, as his depression is not suitable for happier events. Months later, as Summer and Tom attend the wedding of their co-worker Millie, they dance at the wedding and Summer catches the bouquet. They sit next to each other on the trip home, and Summer invites Tom to a party at her apartment. He attends the party expecting the two to rekindle the relationship, but instead spends most of the evening alone drinking until he spots Summer showing off an engagement ring and realizes what kind of party it is, at which point he leaves close to tears. Tom enters a deep depression, only leaving his apartment for alcohol and junk food. After a few days, he returns to work with a hangover and after an emotional outburst, quits his job. He decides to rededicate himself to architecture, makes a list of firms, and begins to attend interviews. On day 488, Summer sees Tom at his favorite spot in the city, and they talk. Tom states his lack of understanding towards her actions. Summer explains that he was right about the existence of true love and that she discovered in someone else all the feelings she had never been sure about with Tom. Summer holds Tom's hand. She says she is glad to see Tom is doing well. As she leaves, Tom tells her he really hopes she is happy. 12 days later, on Wednesday, May 23, he attends a job interview and meets a beautiful girl who is also applying for the same job. They talk, and Tom learns she shares his favorite spot and dislike for the parking lots. Before entering the interview, he makes a date to have coffee with her afterwards. When he asks her name, she replies Autumn, and Tom breaks the fourth wall to look directly into the camera. Cast: Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Tom Hansen, a trained architect who works as a writer at a greeting card company. Zooey Deschanel as Summer Finn, assistant to Tom's boss and romantic interest of Tom. Jeffrey Arind as Mackenzie, Tom's co-worker at the greeting card company. Chloe Grace Moretz as Rachel Hansen, Tom's younger half-sister. She supports Tom during hard times. Matthew Gray Gubler as Paul, one of Tom's friends. Clark Gregg as Vance, Tom's boss. Patricia Belcher as Millie, Rachel Boston as Allison, Tom's blind date. Minka Kelly as Autumn, Male Flanagan as Rhoda, Yvette Nicole Brown as Vance's new secretary, Olivia Bagg as young Summer, Richard McGonigal as narrator. Production, writing, the style of film is presented in a nonlinear narrative. Each scene is introduced using a title card showing which of the 500 days it is. Co-writer of the film Scott Neustadter admitted the film was based on a real romance. Neustadter explains that when he met the real girl who inspired the character Summer as a student at the London School of Economics in 2002, he was rebounding from a bad breakup back home, and promptly fell crazily, madly, hopelessly in love with the girl who returned his kisses but not his ardor. The ending of the relationship was painfully and unforgettably awful, which prompted him to co-write the film with Michael H. Webber. When Neustadter later showed the script to Summer's real-life counterpart, she said she related more to the Tom character. Webber also stated that, "We've all been in the trenches of love, we've all gone through the highs and lows, so Scott and I felt that the only way to tell this story was to come at it from a completely real place. It was pretty interesting for us because Scott was just going through a breakup and I was in a long-term relationship, so we each brought a totally opposite perspective, living it and not living it, and I think that tension helped to bring out more of the comedy." Direction. Director Webb has described the film as more of a coming-of-age story as opposed to a rom-com. He stated, "We arrive at a different conclusion, for one thing. Plus, most romantic comedies are more loyal to a formula than to emotional truth. It's about happiness, and learning that you'll find it within yourself, rather than in the big blue eyes of the girl in the cubicle down the hall. I wanted to make an unsentimental movie and an uncynical movie. In my mind, I wanted it to be something you could dance to. That's why we put a parenthesis in the title Euro. It's like a pop song in movie form. It's not a big film. It's not about war or poverty. It's about 500 days in a young guy's relationship, but it's no less deserving of scrutiny. When your heart is first broken, it consumes you. And it's an emotion I wanted to make a movie about, before I forgot how it felt." Webb also stated that Deschanel's character, Summer, is based on a stock character type. "Yes, Summer is an immature view of a woman. She's Tom's view of a woman. He doesn't see her complexity and the consequence for him is heartbreak. In Tom's eyes, Summer is perfection, but perfection has no depth. Summer's not a girl, she's a phase." Gordon-Levitt explained that he was drawn to the role of Tom because of his relatability to the character. "I've had my heart broken before. Truly, truly broken. But when I look back at me in my heartbroken phase, it's pretty hilarious, because it felt so much more extreme than it really was. One of the things I love about Days of Summer is that it doesn't make light of what we go through in romances, but it is honest about it and shows it for what it is, which is often profoundly funny." Locations. David Ng of the Los Angeles Times describes architecture as a star of the film. The film was originally set in San Francisco but was later moved to Los Angeles and the script rewritten to make better use of the location. Buildings used include the Los Angeles Music Center and the towers of California Plaza. The older Fine Arts Building is featured in the film, in a scene where Tom shows it to Summer and mentions its designers, Walker and Eisen, two of his favorite architects, although he incorrectly gives the partners names as Walker and Eisner. Christopher Hawthorne of the Los Angeles Times describes the film as having finely honed sense of taste to include the Bradbury Building where Tom goes for his job interview. Marketing. To help promote the film, Gordon-Levitt and Deschanel starred in the debut episode of Microsoft Zune and Mean Magazine's Sin Mash series. In the episode, they mashed the characters from the films Sid and Nancy with story elements from 500 Days of Summer. Marc Webb created a music video as a companion piece to the film, titled The Bank Heist. It features Deschanel and Gordon-Levitt dancing to "Why Do You Let Me Stay Here?", a song by Deschanel's folk group She and Him. Webb remarked, "When we did the Euro unregistered trademark T include Zooey in the dance sequence, in 500 Days, she was a little heartbroken and I felt like I needed to remedy that." Release. The film made its debut at the 2009 Sundance Film Festival. It proved a huge success and received a standing ovation from festival crowds upon screening. In Europe, 500 Days premiered in Switzerland as the opening film of the 62nd Locarno Film Festival. Filmed independently, it was picked up for distribution by Fox Searchlight Pictures and opened in US and Canadian limited release on July 17, 2009, later expanding to wide release in the US on August 7, 2009. It was later also released on September 2, 2009, in Ireland and the United Kingdom, and opened in Australia on September 17, 2009. Reception, box office. Upon the film's initial limited release in the US, it was expected to become the breakout indie hit of the summer. Later, during its full opening weekend, the film grossed 27 times its original budget cost, making it one of the most successful sleeper hits of the year. By September 8, the film had taken in $1.9 million from 318 screens in the United Kingdom. This was regarded as a successful 5-day opening by Fox Searchlight, earning around half as much as the science fiction blockbuster District 9, which took in $3.5 million. As of February 25, 2010, the film has grossed $32,391,374 in the United States and Canada and $60,722,734 worldwide. Critical response: a film received positive reviews from critics upon its release. Based on over 200 professional reviews, it obtained a certified fresh seal on Rotten Tomatoes with an approval rating of 87% and an average score of 7.6/10. The consensus describes the film as clever and offbeat, as well as refreshingly honest and utterly charming. Later, at the website's year-end Golden Tomato Awards, which honored the best-reviewed films of 2009, a film placed second in the romantic category. At Metacritic, which assigns a normalized rating out of 100 to reviews from mainstream critics, the film has received an average score of 76% based on 36 reviews, indicating generally favorable reviews. Response in the American press was positive. Film critic Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times gave the film 4 stars out of 4. He described the film as a delightful comedy, alive with invention. He particularly praised the strong performances of Gordon-Levitt and Deschanel and summarized his review by adding, "Here is a rare movie that begins by telling us how it will end and is about how the hero has no idea why." Premiere also awarded the film 4 stars out of 4, stating, "Much like the actual summer, we never wanted it to end." Michael Orda ±A of the Los Angeles Times gave a positive review. He wrote, 500 Days of Summer is something seldom seen, an original romantic comedy. It bristles with energy, emotion and intellect, as it flits about the dizzying highs and weeping karaoke lows of a passionate entanglement. Dana Stevens of Slate also praised the film and described it as a keeper. It's fun both to watch and to talk about afterward, and it possesses the elusive rom-com sine qua non, 2 equally appealing leads who bounce wonderfully off each other. Lulu Menick of the New York Post awarded the film 3 stars out of 4. He praised the directing of Marc Webb, stating, "It's the oldest bittersweet story in the book, of course, but music video director Marc Webb approaches his feature debut with great confidence, flair and a minimum of schmaltz." That's the whole guy-centric point of Days of Summer, though. Sometimes you never, ever truly figure out why these mysterious creatures break your heart. Entertainment Weekly critic Owen Gleiberman gave the film an A, and also praised the originality of the story. Most romantic comedies have half a dozen situations at best: meet cute, infatuation, pop song montage, contrived mix-up, angry breakup, and final clinch. Days of Summer is about the many unclassifiable moments in between. It's a feat of star acting, and it helps make Days not just bitter or sweet but everything in between. Film Threat critic Scott Nutt gave the film a maximum 5-star rating and called the script fantastic. He also lauded the film's innovative nature. Of course they meet. Of course they fall for each other. Of course there are problems. It sounds cliché copyright, but what's remarkable about 500 Days is how the film explores new ways to tell the world's oldest story. He concluded that the film was the best romantic comedy since Love Actually. Peter Travers of Rolling Stone gave the film 3.5 stars out of 4. He wrote, "Boy meets girl, boy loses girl. It's been done to emo death. That's why the sublimely smart, sexy, joyful, sad days of summer hits you like a blast of pure romantic oxygen," and concludes, 500 Days is otherwise a different kind of love story, an honest one that takes a piece out of you." IGN critic Eric Goldman scored the film at 9.0/10 upon his review of the Blu-ray release. He praised the film as one of the best of 2009, and particularly complimented the innovative nature of the story in an often cliché copyright D genre. 500 Days of Summer proved there is a way to bring something fresh and new to one of the most cliché and often frustrating genres, the romantic comedy. The New York Times and Empire gave the film 4/5. The AV Club also gave the film favorable reviews with a B grade. NPR was more dismissive. For all its rhetorical whimsy and hipster dressings, Days of Summer is a thoroughly conservative affair, as culturally and romantically status quo as any Jennifer Aniston vehicle. Joe Morgenstern of The Wall Street Journal was also more critical, calling it synthetic and derivative, a movie theater unregistered trademark popping with perceptions while searching for a style. British newspaper The Times likewise gave a mixed review. Despite Toby Young awarding the film 3 stars out of 5, he critiqued, "It is hardly the freshest romantic comedy of past 20 years. Taking the best bits from other movies and rearranging them in a non-linear sequence does not make for an original film." The Guardian film critic Peter Bradshaw said the film was let down by sitcom clichés, and by being weirdly incurious about the inner life of its female lead. Mark Adams of the Daily Mirror, though, gave the film a glowing review, awarding it a full 5 stars, and writing, "It is a modern romance for grown-ups. A sweet-natured, funny, deeply romantic tale that brims with energy and is blessed with top-notch performances by Deschanel and Gordon-Levitt, who are both charming and have real chemistry." Chris Tukey of the Daily Mail was also impressed and described the film as delightful and endearing, awarding 4 stars out of 5. He wrote, "For the young, this is a worthwhile cautionary tale. If you're of more mature vintage, it will make you remember how it felt to be naive, energized by first love and mortified when that certain someone turned out not to love you nearly as much as you would have liked." Jordan Matos of the World Socialist website gave the film a negative review, stating that it's a mission of the material realities and complexities that play a hand in determining the fate of contemporary relationships. Comes at too high a price. He praised Deschanel's performance as honest, and terrifying in its calculating precision, but condemned the film for not taking a searching look at the development of Summer's personality. Chelsea Aquino of Racket magazine gave the movie a positive review, granting the film a score of 8.5 out of 10. She wrote a 500 Days was a breath of fresh air. They weren't afraid of showing the pear-shaped, more real and complex side of romance versus all the old cliché copyright praise was also given, complimenting how 500 Days of Summer was a rare kind of film that transcends its genre and the stereotypes that it's often associated with. Accolades: the film was also included in several top 10 year-end lists for 2009 by various film critics. Awards: Scott Neustadter and Michael H. Weber received numerous awards for their screenplay, including the 2009 Hollywood Film Festival's Hollywood Breakthrough Screenwriter Award on October 26, 2009, the Satellite Award for Best Original Screenplay, the Southeastern Film Critics Association Award for Best Original Screenplay, as well as the Las Vegas Film Critics Society Award for Best Screenplay. Alan Edward Bell won the San Diego Film Critics Society Award for Best Editing, as well as the film being named one of the 10 Best Movies of the Year by the National Board of Review Awards 2009. The film also received 2 nominations at the 67th Golden Globe Awards announced on December 15, 2009, for Best Picture and for Joseph Gordon-Levitt for Best Actor. It has been nominated for 4 Independent Spirit Awards and won the award for Best Screenplay. It received a nomination for the People's Choice Award. Music: the film features a musical sequence after Tom and Summer first spend the night together. As Tom walks to work, He is overjoyed and struts down the street in a grand musical number set to the Hall & Oates song You Make My Dreams, and others join his dance. Soundtrack. The soundtrack for the film was released on July 14, 2009. The soundtrack peaked at number 42 on the US Billboard 200 chart. A Story of Boy Meets Girl Michael Danner and Rob Simonson, Us Regina Spektor, There Is a Light That Never Goes Out The Smiths, Bad Kids Black Lips, Please, Please, Please Let Me Get What I Want The Smiths, There Goes the Fear Doves, You Make My Dreams Hall & Oates, Sweet Disposition The Temper Trap, Kulka on M. A. Dit Carla Bruni, Mushibaum Feist, Hero Regina Spektor, Bookends Simon and Garfunkel, Vagabond Wolf Mother, She's Got You High Mum Ra, Here Comes Your Man Me Agan Smith, Please, Please, Please Let Me Get What I Want She and Him, iTunes bonus tracks, Here Comes Your Man Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Sugar Town Zooey Deschanel, At Last Kevin Michael, references. External links, official website, 500 Days of Summer at the Internet Movie Database, 500 Days of Summer at AllMovie, 500 Days of Summer at Box Office Mojo, 500 Days of Summer at Rotten Tomatoes, 500 Days of Summer at Metacritic.